Yo, what's happening, everybody? It's Maurice again here with another video. Um, Today will be a little different because I think the last two or so videos that I've had, I've talked about Marvel Champions, and today I'm kind of stepping out of my comfort zone, so to speak, as it comes to the video uploads I have. And today I kind of wanted to talk about the idea of solo gaming and the stigma that follows it. I didn't really understand why solo gaming, existed up until it became a huge part of my gaming journey. So I'll take y'all back to right when COVID hit, right in 2020, because I think this is especially where we're starting to see more solo games come out. But I was just buying some games here and there for me and my friends to play, and then boom, we got hit with COVID. Everywhere started shutting down. It was tough to try to get together. In the area that I was in, the cops were patrolling for people to see what they were doing while they were driving on the street. I had to keep a letter in my car that I was an essential worker so that I can drive to and from where I was at to go to work and back so that I wouldn't be harassed, on the way home or there. But now I have all these board games that I can't play with people because they all require, other people to play. And that made me start looking into what games can I play by myself, because normally I would play a co-op game by myself so that I can have an understanding of the mechanics of the game, so that whenever I'm teaching it to somebody, or if I'm playing with somebody that knows the game just as much as I do, I can be more prepared for us to try to beat whatever the game is, right? And then I realized were some games that I love that I can't play by myself. It just doesn't make sense for me to try to play, or it have mechanics that seem to require people, or the way that the rules were written, they just required more people. So I started looking more and more into board games that either were solo specific, that you can only play it with one person, or they were co-op games. So with cooperative games, you can play multi-handed, or with multiple characters or whatever, depending on what the game is, and you can make it work by yourself. If it requires, at least two or three people, then that's just how many at minimum of characters or people that you're controlling. But with Euro style games, where you're required to have workers that you put on a particular place to gain resources, or games that require you to kind of focus on whatever you have on your side of the board, and you're trying to get all the points that you need to win the game. But there are also other people around the table that's doing that. There weren't a lot of options for them for you to be able to play a game like that by yourself, because you would essentially be going up against yourself. It's like playing chess against yourself. It's not that you can't do that, because you can find different openings or whatever the case may be, but it's not you going up against the game. And I started looking into games that I can play that weren't necessarily cooperative, but I wasn't finding much up until I found Everdale, which is it's a cute little game where you're trying to buy these, or I guess purchase would be the right term for it, these creatures and I guess they call them critters, and constructions to help build up your town. So, you place a worker on the board to get these resources. You use those resources to buy these particular critters and constructions and try to build up your city to gain however many points, that they're worth. And by the end of the game, everybody around the table tally up their points. Whoever has the most points win, right? Well, they have a solo variant of it where whenever you buy a card, you roll a 8-sided die, and whatever card corresponds to that number, the what they call automa gets it. So you're starting to see more games have a similar mechanic where you're going up against either like a deck of cards that, whenever you flip over a card, there's an action to it, similar to Architects of the West Kingdom. If you ever played that game, you do an action, and then you flip over this deck, what a top card on this deck, and then you do whatever is on the deck depending on the state of the game. And I started to find more and more of these games because during COVID, you couldn't visit with people, or the world was living in such a fear of the unknown of what COVID was, that we didn't want to get together because we know that the risk of infecting someone and infection could lead to death, right? So that got me into looking into what is out there in terms of solo gaming. There's no way I'm about to sit here and just let all these games rot and I can't play them. Or, maybe I just look for more games that fit the times essentially. So I started finding more cooperative games to play. This is where my love for Marvel Champions came into play. I found this game, watched a video where somebody loved it. I bought it, took a whim, bought it out on a whim. My favorite board game to this day. But I started looking more into solo gaming, and you're starting to see, especially over the past couple of years, there are more games that are out that has a solo variant. And what I mean by that is there's a special set of rules on how to play this game by yourself. And what was also cool about that is there's a community out there of people that go through and create solo rules to be able to play certain games. So as you're starting to see the community get more active into it, the designers are starting to become more active in it. And you can go on Kickstarter right now and find certain games that look like it's for people. And there's it's kind of a draw for certain people to have a solo variant, right? Where it's like, we got all these cool things going on, but we also have a solo variant. And I think that that's amazing. But to go back to the topic of this video, with it being a stigma, it's interesting because I've seen people ask me about certain board games, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can play this. I can take this out to my friend's house, or I can play this by myself, and it kind of catches them off guard. Like, you play games by yourself? And I'm like, yeah, like it's no different. At least to me, the way I look at it, it's no different than a puzzle, right? There's people that do jigsaw puzzles by themselves, and jigsaw puzzles, at least my understanding of them, didn't have the intention of having a social aspect to them, right? And I think that's where the stigma comes from with board gaming. Is board gaming typically is about having people at the table. There is a social aspect to it alongside the gaming, right? I mean, you look at some of the more popular, like Hasbro style games of Monopoly or Sorry or Settlers of Catan, if you want to take it there, right? Where it requires other people to play, and there's player interaction to where, you can take stuff from people, you can cause whatever they got going on over there to be spoiled, or, there's player interaction, right? But then you look at games where it's just you and the game. And I try to compare solo gaming to jigsaw puzzles because it's the same idea of trying to figure out what's going on here, right? You get a jigsaw puzzle, whether if it's 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000, the number keeps going up, and you're trying to piece it together, right? There's different color palettes that you're trying to match up together to get this particular part of the puzzle. And you look at board gaming, and sometimes it's like that, but maybe with numbers, or maybe with a theme that's going on. So with Marvel Champions, you build a deck to try to go up against this villain that whenever they're pulling cards from their deck, or I guess you're revealing the cards from their deck, bad stuff happen, and you're just trying to survive and also beat them, right? So you're trying to figure out, so instead of matching color palettes, you're trying to figure out how to control the board state to where you can keep attacking the villain while not losing your health points, right? So there's a puzzle there figuratively that you're trying to figure out to win. And it's okay to do that by yourself because, the same enjoyment that you get out of, you're trying to match up these colors that's all blue, purple, and they all look alike, like if it's a sky or something like that. And you finally figure that part out. There's that hit of dopamine, right, that you get. And it's the same thing in board gaming where you're trying to figure out that puzzle and you're in it, you're focused, you're not thinking about whatever's going on outside, right? So, I just made this video just to kind of talk about that stigma. And I think that this is something that should be more accepted. I actually own a few more games that I plan on taking to work because I think that well, at least at work, I'll play games on my lunchtime, and some people will come by and see what I'm playing, and they'll see the beautiful colors. If you're familiar with Everdell, the resin pieces and the berries and the stones, they all look amazing on the table, right? So it always draws attention because of its artistic design, and it's a way to open up that conversation for me to be able to explain to people, what's going on and why I'm doing what I'm doing whenever I play the game. And it should be something that's more acceptable because even with the restrictions of COVID dying down, I think that the solo gaming should continue to go on. I mean, there are people doing lists of their favorite solo games right now, and there's a plethora of them, and maybe I can do mine, one of these days. But I think that this is something that should be more acceptable, and I would even argue should be tried more by people. That maybe I can take up more of my solo games and put them at my desk, and allow people to check them out or take them or whatever, and just play, because I think that there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot that happens within the workspace, and it's a way for people to just kind of get away. So this is my particular argument towards solo games. I think that they at this point are a necessity within the realm of board gaming. You're starting to see more Euro style games, and just board games in general that are starting to shift towards having a solo variant within it as a selling point of the game. So we're at that point where it's at least recognized within the culture of board gaming, and now we're starting to move towards it becoming more of a societal normal, because board gaming has become a more societal norm where people understand, that this, I won't say it's an essential part of their lives, but it's something that has become more acceptable within people's lives. Board game has become a huge part of my life. I mean, I'm making videos about them now, so I don't know if this will reach out to people, but I just want it to be something that people take into consideration. And I love to hear what you all have to say about solo board gaming, because I know that there's a few YouTubers I watch that will play Marvel Champions by themselves, or they'll preview a game by themselves, and I think that it's a beautiful thing that's going on that I hope continues to carry on, even with COVID starting to die down. Well, kind of, but it's starting to die down to the point where people are meeting together again and can play games together again. And I hope that we continue to see more solo only games, or that we see more games that have solo variants, similar to the West Kingdom series or Everdell, name game here that has a solo variant. I hope that it continues on. But thank you for your time, and hope you have a blessed day, and keep on gaming.